2024, the Major John Leroy Haynes Florida Veterans History Program was created to collect and preserve the stories and experiences of Florida's veterans and to recognize the state of Florida's military contribution throughout our nation's history. Through recorded interviews, the Florida Veterans History Program Oral History Collection acts as a living archive of first-hand accounts to capture the details of military service and the voices, memories, and reflections of the Floridians who served. The Major John Leroy Haynes Florida Veterans History Program is operated by the Department of State, Division of Arts and Culture's Florida Folklife Program. Together, we are proud to ensure that Florida's military history is preserved, honored, and shared. My name is Julian Duncan with the Florida Department of State, Division of Arts and Culture, Florida Folklife Program. Today is September 3rd, 2025. Time is 10:02 a.m., and I'm interviewing Fred Heery Jr. in Tallahassee, Florida. This interview is being conducted for the Major John Leroy Haynes Florida Veterans History Program and will be submitted to the State Archives of Florida and Library of Congress Veterans History Program. Good morning, Mr. Heery.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm doing well.
Good. Glad to hear that. So to begin this interview, can you tell me a little bit about your life before you joined the Marine Corps growing up and what you were like as a child?
Yeah. So grew up in Tallahassee, Florida. Was super into the outdoors. Always out on the lake or hunting, fishing, water sports. Rode a lot of dirt bikes with my dad growing up and raced all over the state of Florida. Just always enjoyed being outside and doing physical activities.
Awesome. So what led you to decide to enlist, and specifically what led you to the Marine Corps?
So I'd always liked the idea of serving our country. And I thought for a long time I was going to go into the Navy just because that was some of like my family members had entered that branch of service. And so that was kind of always in the back of my mind. So graduated high school, I went to college, but wasn't doing so well. It just wasn't the right time for me. So I was kind of working at like a tire shop and just not really happy with where I was. And I remember I was reading the book American Sniper. And in that, he had mentioned, he said, just talking about the different branches of service and, saying like, Navy and Army and the Marine Corps are all, outstanding. And he said, but Marines, every one of them is a war fighter, every single one of them, and spoke very highly of the Marine Corps. And, my sister had joined the Navy. So I was like, well, maybe I gotta one up her, And so I just made the decision right then and there that I was gonna go talk to a recruiter, and went into the recruiting office, and they were like, well, who reached out to you, And I was like, no one. I'm here to sign up. And within 2 weeks later, I had a ship date, to go out. The ship date was a little bit further out. I think that was probably like a September timeframe, and they were going to put me in the delayed entry program. And then I shipped out in like January.
East Coast or West Coast?
I was East Coast, Parris Island. Yeah.
What do you remember most vividly about arriving at boot camp, or really any of that whole experience? But I'm kind of thinking of that first moment, that kind of maybe, I don't know if there's a shocking entrance to it.
Yeah, there most certainly was, right? So they always talk about the yellow footprints that you stand on there, every recruit stands on. And so I got there and I was, I'd heard stories, but I was still surprised at just the level of, screaming, running, just the intensity right out of the gate. I mean, there was no warm up, just you were going 100 miles an hour from the start until you walked across that parade deck and graduated. It was intense, but it was definitely doable. Nothing was incredibly, unsurmountable in boot camp.
Well, what about the end of it when you got to put on the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor and call yourself a Marine? What was that feeling like?
It was like, okay, I took the first step. That's what it felt like to me. Like, okay, we got this out of the way. Now I can say, all right, I'm a Marine, but I knew that there was still much more fun to be had. So yeah, it was definitely a good feeling, definitely a good accomplishment. And and to see all your buddies, kind of go through that, that you bond with in boot camp. And then you get to see them also enjoy that experience. So that was good. But it was definitely a kind of, okay, I took the first step, everyone's a hard charger coming out of there. Like, okay, well, on to the next thing.
And the next thing for you would be Marine combat training, right?
Yep. MCT. So took off, I guess you have like your 10 or 15 day, boot leave, you go home, tell all your boot camp war stories, and then, take off to MCT. And that was all right. That probably wasn't my favorite part of, all the training I did in the Marine Corps. There was just a lot of people there, so you get to do some fun stuff and work with some cool guys, but it wasn't as rewarding as some of the other trainings that I'd done in the Marine Corps.
Why not? Why do you say that?
I have to be totally honest. We waited around a lot. We trained hard, but there was also just kind of like waiting to go to the next training evolution.
Yeah.
And like I said, everybody's like, we're ready to go. And I didn't find that very challenging too, which is why I joined the Marine Corps. I wanted to, definitely a challenge. But it was still a good time. Learned a lot of, land nav, weapons, just a lot of good physical activity going on there. But yeah, it was, that was only 30 days. So it was pretty short.
Yeah. Okay. And then your MOS training, can you talk about that a little bit? What MOS you chose and why, and what that training pathway looked like?
Yeah. So when I signed my paperwork, right, it was communications. That was just kind of open. So I could have landed really anywhere within that communications area. So there's satellite communications, radio operator. There's just a myriad of different things that you can be assigned to. And I got 0621 field radio operator. So, which was, I'm really, really glad it worked out that way. So I got field radio operator. I went out to 29 Palms in August, and that's in the Mojave Desert, if anyone, doesn't know that. And spent some time out there waiting to pick up the next radio operator training class. And it was really, really hot there. We did a lot of, stuff super early in the morning, and learned a lot. It was a lot of fast-paced, kind of educational stuff, a lot of classes going through there, good practical application. Had a lot of good instructors. They were really motivated, and, just kept us on the straight and narrow there.
And what did day-to-day work look like? What kind of things were you doing on training exercises or missions or anything like that? What did that look like on a day-to-day basis?
It just depends on where I was at, what we were doing, what the unit was doing. So are you asking about school or
well, yeah, I guess I'm asking about both. I'm asking about just what the job looked like on the ground, kind of, and both in the schoolhouse setting, but then also when you're with your unit, when you're doing a field exercise or a training exercise, something like that. Like, what is your role in?
Yeah, so it's best described by unit, I would say.
Okay.
So when I got orders to Okinawa, Japan, I knew I was going to, it was 1R3, 3rd Recon. And when I got there, you get assigned to like the main comm shop, so you're wake up, go do PT, and then you go to pretty much like, not an office setting, but a building that you work in, and you're doing, you're getting gear ready for, operations that other, companies may be doing. You're, maintaining the equipment, doing inventory checks, just getting it ready to go do a field operation. And then, you push out into the field for 2 weeks, a week, a month, whatever it is. And then, you and all your guys, you're loading all the equipment out there, setting up the radio nets, programming the radios, just a lot of like technical kind of skill set in that main radio operator function, right? Providing communication networks for all the companies and headquarters to shoot, move, communicate, right? So that's you setting up. Now, I didn't stay there long. I was in that main comm shop for about a year, and then I got picked up to the Force Platoon. And that's where things like really started to pick up, and I started to have a lot more fun. We were doing all the, Force Recon. Obviously, they have a different mission set than the radio operator shop. So doing patrols, a lot of shooting, maritime operations. So I got certified as I went through a course called coxswain's course. So it's essentially you learn how to operate the small, inflatable boats. And that was something that was pretty fun. I think we were out there almost a month, learning how to drive them at night, flipping them over, learning all the ins and outs about the engine. Navigation was especially difficult on those. And then obviously, operating it. So I got the support that was one of the first things I did as, when I was with Force Platoon, was there was actually a Osprey crash in Okinawa. And it wasn't far from our base. And so we would load up the boats, put them in the water, ride down the beach every day till we got it cleaned up. But essentially it hit the shoreline. So our objective was to get in there, keep the protesters away, and then also help clean up the bird. So we did that. And then, it could switch from, loading up and being on the water all day to, okay, now we're going to go out into the training center and, we're going to do a patrol, be out there for a couple of days. A lot of cool training with those group of guys. SPIE-rigging, so kind of hanging from a rope underneath a helicopter.
That's cool.
Yeah, like a piece of cargo. That was fun. Got a chance to just do a lot of fun stuff.
Yeah.
And, and then also I supported, jump operations with them. I myself was not a jumper, but, I got to be there with those guys and make sure that we could find them and talk to them when they did land on the ground.
Kind of encapsulates the land, sea, air aspect of the Marine Corps right there. I mean, you mentioned all three in a very short amount of time, just with your kind of day-to-day operations.
Yeah. So day-to-day can change a lot.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. You also mentioned protesters. Is that something you encountered some in Japan? Was that specific to that Osprey crash, or was that kind of something that people, did you just encounter while you were there?
Yeah. So, yes, it was encountered while the entirety of my time there. And it was for whatever reasons, political or just, locals being upset that we're there. There's a lot of U.S. military presence on Okinawa. Mm-hmm. And depending on where you go, it's, there may be more or less, or, it might be just a different perspective of us there. Mm-hmm. But typically, there'd be a few dozen people outside of the gate at any time. Just kind of standing there, and they were peaceful. I don't think I ever saw one get out of control or any no violence erupted, nothing like that. They just stood there with their signs and letting their voice be heard. Mm. The Osprey crash was a little bit different. They were a little bit more hands-on there. I don't want to say there was no fights, nothing like that. The Japanese people the people of Okinawa are very good and nice, but they were a little bit more forward with their presence. So we'd have to kind of take the boats and push the other boats out of the way so they wouldn't get into the area that we had contained, because we had, divers in the water. So just kind of managing that and, watching out for the safety of our people that were trying to get it all cleaned up. And as you can imagine, right, if another foreign country crashed a plane onto a beach in, St. Augustine, there'd be some people that had something to say about it.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, it's just interesting to think about, and I'm sure you had to think about, interacting with locals in a professional manner, and of course, this is a key ally in Japan, but kind of maintaining that professionalism in a public-facing way. That's just interesting to think about that aspect of your job.
Yeah. And there was, there were some times where just across the board, that didn't always get right. Mm. And, they would say, okay, no one's allowed off base for a month or whatever it is. And, you kind of get locked down. And, but it was always manageable. I mean, I never felt like anything was too extreme.
Yeah.
It was restrictive, especially for the Marine Corps there. But you're right. I mean, anything happens, somebody gets something stolen or whatever, whatever happens there, it's an international incident. That's a serious thing.
Yeah. Yeah. On that note, kind of being on or off base or being locked down in base or interacting with locals, what was your day-to-day life outside of work? Did you get to explore the island a lot? Did you get to explore the culture a lot? Did you get to go out and go hiking and do other things on the island that you what did you enjoy in your off time?
I would say, okay, so I was on Camp Schwab, which has had a lot of coastline. It was right there on the beach. So I did a lot of spearfishing, and that was pretty fun. It was pretty difficult just because of how far we had to like swim out. But I enjoyed same kind of activities like I did when I was growing up. There was a zip lining course there. I was heavy in the gym, a lot of spearfishing, and then, just kind of hanging out with your buddies, grilling out on base or going to other bases. And they had a couple cool malls there. They had, there was definitely stuff to do. It wasn't the same stuff that I like to do back home. But outside of it, yeah, just really just working out, hitting the beach and hanging out with your buds.
And how do you feel like you adjusted to living overseas? I mean, you're fairly young at this point, and then also working in a very demanding unit. I mean, Marine Recon has kind of a reputation, right?
Yeah. So I enjoyed the work part. Obviously, I was away from a lot of stuff that I missed. I missed my friends back home, missed being able to just drive my truck, something like that. So it was kind of hard at first, but then after you get my initial duty station was 2 years, right? So I got orders there for 2 years. So once I got past like the halfway point, I was just counting down the time, essentially.
So what was transitioning back to your next duty station after Okinawa, like Camp Lejeune was where you went next?
Yeah. So I went to their career planner, my master sergeant went to the career planner for me, Master Sergeant Hage. And I was like, get me off this island. Like, I'm ready. I am ready to be done back in stateside. Like, I do not want to be on Okinawa for my, entire enlistment. So they're like, all right, cool. I wanted to go to California, because we haven't touched on it yet, but I did some more training there. And I was like, okay, East Coast or West Coast, first option. Second ask would be, East Coast. So thought I wanted to go to 2nd Recon, which is in Lejeune. And, that was where I asked. And they're like, all right, cool. We don't care about that. You're going to 2-8 in Camp Lejeune. So 2-8 is an infantry unit. So I landed there and they asked me and they're like, where are you coming from? And I was like, Okinawa. And they're like, no way, we're going there in 6 months. And I was like, oh my gosh. So we went on a UDP back to Okinawa, same base I was on, Camp Schwab. And I remember like FaceTiming my old roommate, and like there was one barracks here, 2-8 was in, and then my old recon barracks, I was like waving at him and I could see him from across the base waving back at me. So I tried to get out of there and I got brought right back. But the time, I think I was there, I was in Lejeune for 6 months before I went back to Okinawa. And I had a really good time. I mean, I really, really enjoyed the infantry unit and the people that I had met there. Just a really, really close-knit, great group of guys. I keep in touch with a lot of them still. And, so I had, I was driving around, had a little bit more freedom back, so that was nice. And then I was also, when I got to 2-8, I landed in the comm shop, and I was in the comm shop for like 2 weeks. And they were like, hey, you're going to be the head RO, the head radio operator for Fox Company. And I was like, I don't know how to do that. They're like, you'll figure it out. Just go. So met the Fox Company leadership and kind of, I was coming off of an injury at the time. So they kind of asked me about that. They're like, okay, like this is what we need you to do. Here's your team. And I got to support, basically be the head communications guy for an entire company. And that was a great experience for me. Definitely learned and grew a lot just getting like thrown into that environment. So that was pretty cool.
What does that entail? Being the head radio guy as opposed to what you were doing before?
So, like I said, you have like your different companies. You have headquarters, Fox Company, whatever it is, and each company has its own radio operators. So in the headquarters company, you may have a master sergeant as the head guy in charge of the communications, section there.
Mm-hmm.
Fox Company, it was, Corporal Heery. That, I was the guy. If radio was not working for us, it was on me. And then additionally, so then I had a few radio operators that worked with me, and they went out to the different platoons within that company. So I was in charge of those guys, making sure that they were doing everything they needed to do, make sure they had everything that they needed, make sure that they were trained, and then we're doing all the kind of logistical stuff as well that we would do in like a headquarters company. But now you're also learning like infantry tactics too, because you can't just be like the guy standing there with the radio. An additional duty to being a head RO was, the commanding officer. I was his guy. I was always next to him. So when we were doing any kind of operation, I was there, had a radio in my backpack so that he could communicate to the rest of the company, back to the battalion, whatever he needed to do. He had to have, the guy that was at the top tier working with him so that he could effectively maintain control of the company. So I got exposed to a lot of leadership, kind of just having to be around, the commanding officer. And I was in a lot of the higher level briefings and, kind of mission planning that we were doing. So that was a great experience. Again, I wasn't just being told what to do. I was making decisions and trying to make things, work out in my favor.
Sounds like a lot of pressure at the same time. It sounds like a fantastic opportunity, but also a lot of pressure. I mean, was that a challenging transition, or do you feel like you grew into it pretty quickly? How do you feel like you grew through that process?
I learned how to use that, and perform well under pressure, right? So there's always kind of like a limit, but there's also like a certain level of healthy stress that you're just used to operating under. And it's like, okay, if I don't have I work best when I have a tight deadline. Like I'm still going to meet the deadline, but now I've just got done, maybe something that should have taken 2 weeks, I got it done in a week. Okay, I learned how to work my way through that. And just kind of compartmentalizing that, when you want to, not, or just stand back, if you still gotta move forward and get your job done. So yeah, it was high pressure situations sometimes, but nothing that wasn't, healthy.
Yeah. And working with guys under you as well. How do you feel like your relationship with your immediate subordinates was? How did you approach that relationship or that leadership position that you had with them?
In the Marine Corps, it's pretty straightforward, right? Yeah, it's clear who is in charge.
Stripes or no stripes, kind of.
Yeah, and it's just like, okay, like I think one of the other guys was a corporal, my same rank, but he was still. It was always respected, right? Whether it was rank or just the title that I held, they never really gave me any crap about what they did or wouldn't do. That's just not something that really even exists in the Marine Corps. Now, there's a difference in, just doing what I say to do and actually taking that to heart and being like, okay, I want to do the best I can at that. And we had to work through that with some of the guys and get them to want that for themselves, to want to produce the best work that they could. But I got to, that was another rewarding part of that position, is I got to watch those gentlemen grow in who they were, and while doing that myself. So the relationships are good. I still talk to them. I call them every Marine Corps birthday. I still talk to those guys.
Nice. So I'm still thinking about, you mentioned being back in Okinawa, and you can wave at your your previous unit just about. What do you feel like was kind of similar or different about what you were doing over there now with an infantry unit versus what you're doing with the recon unit? Was your day-to-day work, substantially different? Was it?
Yes.
Okay. How so?
Yeah, it was definitely different. We got to go from Okinawa to other places as well.
Okay.
So we were training on island and then training off island too. So I got to go to Jungle Warfare Training Center up there in Okinawa with those guys and support that. That was a lot of fun. I liked being in the field when we were working. That was the fun stuff, and or going to the range. And so we went to Jungle Warfare Training. I'm gonna try to put it out chronologically, but and then we'd come back after that. There's a lot of good pictures that I'll share with you from that as well. And then we got to go to the Philippines, and that was a really cool experience. So we were working with tracks there, and then a lot of time on the range, and just seeing that culture and just a different country, and really spending a lot of time there, like on the ground, in a working manner. We got to work with the Filipino Marines. Great.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, great people there. And, just being able to talk with them and understand like the differences in our Marine Corps versus their Marine Corps. And then we also did some time out on in mainland Japan. So, it was about, I think we took a boat there and flew back, but went to Camp Fuji, which is at the, essentially pretty close to Mount Fuji. And did some operations there, a lot of training, and then something special for me was my unit. I got promoted to sergeant while I was there, and they decided that they would do something pretty cool for me, and they did my promotion ceremony at the summit of Mount Fuji. So, cool. My first sergeant, one of the lieutenants that was working with us, and Doc Malone, the corpsman, he was the one that pinned me. All brought, camouflage utilities, extra weight up that 12,000 foot mountain just to do that for me. And it was really, really special, and I really appreciate the group. And it was actually there was when I said a tight knit unit, right? There were a few other people that were picking up rank that same month, and I think it was like maybe 2 or 3 lance corporals and a corporal, and without even no one asked them to not do that, but they all just collectively said, "No, Sergeant Heery, we want that for you, and for you to have that." And that was something I'll never forget. They chose to, forgo that just so that I could have that for myself. And that was really, really cool.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. I mean, I'm just kind of envisioning, and I'm looking forward to seeing the pictures, but I'm kind of envisioning, you can see the clouds around you at that altitude, right? I mean,
you're over them.
That's cool. Yeah, that's really cool.
It was pretty neat.
Well, yeah, you mentioned, getting to go to all these different places, and having a tight-knit unit, but then also working with Filipino Marines, and did some of those travels and meeting all those different kinds of people with all kinds of different backgrounds, people from different parts of the world, different services, different nationalities. Did that kind of how do you feel that affected your just overall worldview? Developing as a person around that time?
Yeah. So everything, I say this a bunch. Everything's about perspective, right? So problem to you may be a whole different problem to me, and it's the same thing. And of course, it was just you gain a lot of appreciation for this country when you go and see other countries, and you get to see people just not the quality of life just not being the same. And it's easy to, just sit in my AC office building and then walk out to my truck and turn the AC on and then forget that there are so many people without just that very simple thing that, I take for granted every day.
Yeah.
So that was definitely eye-opening, and it gives you a lot of appreciation. Or just, being on base for 2 years and not driving a car. You just come home and you're like, I just want to drive a car. Like that was, you know what I mean? And it was just little things like that you forget about.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about California a little bit. And you mentioned you had done some training there previously, and then you were later, post this deployment, sent to California as well. Is that correct?
No, I just did some training there. So when I was in the Force Recon Platoon, they gave me the opportunity to go to the reconnaissance schoolhouse.
Okay.
So I spent a couple months there going through the training, made it through kind of like the first phase of it, but unfortunately I broke my leg. So they're like, okay, go back to your unit, heal up, and then come back and you'll pick up with this other class. And then my third recon, they wanted me to do an extension on out into Okinawa again for like another 18 more months. And I was like, no, thanks. So I never went back to finish, which, sometimes I regret. But I wouldn't have met all those good people and had all those other good experiences with 2-8. So it's, who knows? But yeah, I was there for a couple months and met some more good people there. Got to see that side of the country. And, obviously living in Southern California, the weather's great. You can go to the beach, hang out, it's just, it was very enjoyable. Recon training was fun too. Had a good time there. Met a lot of good people through that schoolhouse as well. So I want to say I was only there for a couple months, but I really enjoyed it.
That's great. So when your contract ended, what year is this, by the way, when you exited the Marine Corps?
I served from 2015 to 2019.
Gotcha.
So it was late. I took terminal leave. So I got out in late 2018, just before Christmas.
Okay. And what do you feel like your transition was like out of the Marine Corps to civilian life, and what was kind of next for you in life?
So, great question. I had no idea. Yeah, I had money saved up. I was not worried about anything, but I was going to school. I guess I had somewhat of an idea, but I didn't have a place to live lined up, and I didn't have a job lined up. And I remember everything was in the back of my Z71, and I was just pulling out of that gate, and I was like, here we go. Like, dude, you got to figure it out. And drove back to Tallahassee, Florida. And, within like a couple weeks, I had a job lined up and an apartment. I, kind of spent maybe a month living at back of my parents' house till I got things figured out. But I knew I wanted to go to school. I'd went to American Military University while I was in the Marine Corps. So I did some online school while I was in. And then I figured I would just finish up my associate's degree with that same school online. So I briefly worked for another tire store. Excuse me, I should elaborate. Construction management is what I was going to school for. And I was working for like a tire store, and that didn't work out. So I left and I got hired as an intern at a construction management company. And then finished up or got my associate's degree, and then worked for the construction manager, Ajax Construction, for about 2 years. And then got on with the state of Florida after that.
It's interesting to me that there's a lot of people go, military to public service. And I'm wondering if was that something you thought about, like you wanted to continue serving in that regard, or what led you to state of Florida employment?
I think that there's two parts. I can answer that in two different ways.
Yeah.
I was traveling at the time for Ajax, and I wanted something more kind of grounded. So I'd already done a bunch of traveling. And I saw a job opportunity pop up at the state of Florida for a construction project consultant.
Okay.
And I had worked with that team before So I was familiar somewhat of what they do.
Okay.
And I was really looking to be kind of more grounded and more, okay, like I'm going to establish my civilian life now. I don't want to be as mobile anymore. So got on with them and moved back. Now, what's helped me succeed here and stay is all that leadership experience that I gained while I was in the Marine Corps. And from leadership experience from not only just doing it, but I mean, historically, the Marine Corps produces, in my opinion, some of the best leaders in the world. And I was exposed to a lot of good leaders there that I worked either directly for or with or was around and knew who they were, what they had done. So it really gave me a good perspective of, not only how I was as a leader, but also, what was possible, what to strive for. I was just exposed to a lot of good traits in that regard. And that's helped me succeed, in through the different roles I've held at the state. And, it kind of all plays into serving, right? Public service, doing that. I have a sense of purpose for, just either the people of Florida, the people of the United States, that still exists for me when I work for the state.
That's great. I love that. Can you describe what you do for the state of Florida now and how your Marine Corps service influences that work?
Yeah. So in a leadership regard and being able to adapt and overcome. So I'm the director of administration for Department of State. And essentially what we do is we are the business back end of the Department of State. So we support all the other divisions and, whether it's financial support, IT, human resources, purchasing, general services, which is like making sure that, the building has sufficient lighting or moving furniture around or, working with leasing and all the other state agencies. So the Division of Administrative Services, it does a lot for the Department of State to support all the other divisions. So it's kind of like, if I had to tie it back to the Marine Corps, right, it would be kind of that either that head RO or the headquarters. We're the headquarters company for this department. And our job is to make sure everybody else's job is a lot easier.
That's awesome. What's your relationship with, I'm trying to think how to form the question, because I'm kind of asking a two-part. Are you involved in veteran service or in veterans organizations, American Legion services or organizations like that today, as well as what's your relationship with people that you serve with? Do you maintain friendships from the Marine Corps, friendships with other veterans through veterans organizations? What does that look like for you today?
I haven't stepped into the veteran organization, kind of realm yet. I've been invited a couple times. I should probably be better about it. I will now after this interview. But really my tie back to that is to maintain the relationships of people who help make me who I am and just the people that I served with. That's on a regular basis. There's been multiple times where either I've went somewhere or, my buddies had come to Tallahassee to see me, whether that was just, passing by, driving down I-10 and, hey man, do you still live in Tallahassee? Like, absolutely. To just making a couple hour road trip over to see each other. Mississippi, North Carolina, just different parts of Florida. I definitely owe a couple guys a visit for sure. But yeah, that's where I find it is with those relationships.
Awesome. What advice would you give to a young person considering military service today?
Do it. And time's going to pass anyways, and my recruiter gave me a bunch of advice, a really good piece of advice. And which is, most people will be like, oh, that's strange, right? But he said, get everything you want out of the Marine Corps because it's going to get what it wants out of you. And I did exactly that from day one. I mean, I pushed it just if you're going to do it, just get in there and remember that you signed up, and, really, really give it your all, because that 4 years is going to be up, and then you get to look back on that, that term of service, or 4 years or 20 years or 30 years, whatever it is. And, you're always going to have what you did during that time period. So my advice would be make the most out of it. Go.
Is there anything in this interview that we have not covered that you'd like to share?
No, just a big thank you to a couple people, Brody Gilthwaite, Josh Chitwood, Doc Malone, and Timothy Cunningham. Yep, those were some of the leaders that I had that just really, really made a difference on me and who I am. So thank you.
It's awesome. Well, with that, I'll say thank you for your time today, and thank you for your service.
Thanks.